was being set up. He thought that I knew that he had drugs or that I was going to get him into trouble. That was the only explanation I ever got.
As I was crawling, a couple of vehicles went by and they did not notice me, apparently. But then it was just within a minute. I did hear brakes and then more brakes. And I knew that some vehicles were stopping. And I hoped that they were stopping because they saw me. It was really quite strange because it was two guys that I knew served on the volunteer fire department with them. One went to the scene to see if there was anything that could be done there. The other knelt by me and started speaking to me. He was asking me questions as to was there anything left of my leg, anything that could be saved or reattached. I told him no, that everything was mangled and pretty much wrapped up in the shaft. And then he kept asking me other questions to keep me conscious and to reassure me that help was on its way. I'm still concerned about the amount of blood that I'd lost and still concerned about living. The ambulance arrived, immediately put an air cast type of splint on my leg, stopped the blood from flowing. They also initiated 3 IVs, try to get the fluids built back in. The emergency personnel was very cool and calm, very reassuring. But you could still see the concern.
Oh, in a minute.
Cases of course, the blood loss and the possibility of me slipping away. I continued to ask the emergency doctor, am I going to live? He's in the process of calling for helicopter support for transport. All 3 helicopters that are normally available were not available. So I was transported with a police escort to an orthopedic hospital around 57 miles away. I had 3 surgeries before my leg was sewed back up and 15 days in a hospital before I went back home, and rehabilitation, learning to walk again with a prosthesis. And I was back on the job within 9 months exactly to the date of my accident.
I would never. I'm sorry. I would never came there. He's a teacher. This vape hits so much more smoother than the other one, and look what it does. Cool.
I thought again, if no one stops, I'm not going to make it. I had trouble breathing, and I kept thinking there's got to be something inside of me that's very messed up. Suddenly, a truck showed up on the right side. I could barely see. They couldn't ignore me, and within a few minutes, I was being taken care of by the ambulance. When they took me into the emergency surgery, they had to find out basically what was wrong. I had several lacerations on my head from the hammer blows.
How am I asking y'all for nothing? Shut up.
And my face was bruised. There was bruising all down my sides. They stopped the internal bleeding, took care of my collapsed lung, taped my broken ribs. I was in intensive care for 6 days. Based on what I was able to tell them and what they were able to piece together, the local police weren't able to do very much. The case was going nowhere, and so they assigned a Texas Ranger to the case. And through his sources, he was able to find that one of the assailants had escaped from a minimum security prison in California.
That's Coke. I think we get Dr. Pepper.
I survived because there's something that I'm supposed to do, and I haven't quite done it yet. And I didn't want to die.
I survived because of the grace of God giving me the opportunity, the instinct, and the ability to assess the situation very quickly was the key, I believe, in allowing me to survive this accident.
I survived because I watched a show with a lady who had gotten kidnapped, and she lived by getting out of her trunk with the emergency release. The fact that my clothes were wet, the fact that
That's sad. Didn't take me a shower though. Whew, okay. That was a great shower. Oh shit. All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. I need to put on some deodorant. Those are good. Some deodorizer. All right. I have to go upstairs and clean up this bathroom real quick.
I felt a warm sensation of blood just gushing down my face. And instantly, everything had just disappeared. Everything just went totally pitch black.
And you start to ask yourself, what did I do wrong? You know, I just got up to go diving, and now I'm in a situation that is going to probably cost me my life.
I knew that there's no way I could overpower the both of them. I knew that then, I was pretty much going to die.
From the moment I was pushed down into that mattress, it was, how am I going to get back to my kids? I do not want my children to grow up without me.
I did not poop.
There was a car I noticed behind me with one headlight that was burned out and the other one was aimed in my rearview mirror, and it was rather annoying. So I just decided I was going to ease back on the gas pedal a little bit, let that car just pass. And I kept my focus on the road straight ahead in front of me. And as that car pulled out next to me and pulled right next to me, I noticed a flash of light.
Same thing over and over.
And it appeared as if somebody had thrown a firecracker from that car, because I saw the flash of light and then I heard a popping sound come from that car. And at the very same time, I felt a pressure that pushed me over in the seat, and I felt the warm sensation of blood just gushing down my face. And instantly, everything had just disappeared. Everything just went totally pitch black. I couldn't see anything at all. So I was faced with my very first dilemma, because I was traveling between 45, 50 miles an hour, and I knew I had to stop the car some way, somehow. So I did manage to put my foot on, remove it from the gas, put it on the brake, turned the steering wheel to the right, and brought the car safely to a stop at the side of the road. The first thing I did was I laid on the horn to draw attention to myself. And that's the only thing I could think of. I needed help. I needed it now. And if I laid on the horn, maybe somebody would hear it and stop. And it actually worked, because in a matter of only a few moments, a man's voice appeared at the window, pushing me off of the horn and just saying those words I wanted to hear. It's like, oh my God, who did this? I'll help you and I'll take you to the hospital. I couldn't see who this man was, so I had no idea what he looked like. But the sense of urgency in his voice and knowing what I had just experienced, I was just glad he was there. So he opened up my car door, helped me over to his vehicle. In fact, he threw me over his shoulder and carried me very carefully over to his car. He told me that he was a medic in the service and he knew that head wounds would bleed a lot. So he just reminded me to remain calm and that he would get me to the hospital. When we got to the building, he opened up the door. And that is when my sense of safety completely left. Because as he opened up the door, at the very same time that he was assisting me in, he shoved me from behind down into a mattress that was low on the floor.
Oh no.
So I responded very quickly. I yelled. I said, "This is not a hospital." I didn't get any response.
Poor baby.
Coming out the inlet, it was rough. So, but we thought maybe it was going to lay down that day, and it wasn't something that would keep us at home, because you can't, if you stay at home all the days that are rough, then you'll never go out. So it's probably 2 to 4 foot seas.
Smooth way.
We were diving approximately 10 miles east of shore. You have one person in the water,
Detaches.
the spearfishing, and the other person following around on the boat. As soon as I went in the water, the wind increased about 5 miles an hour. Within a short time afterwards, the seas built to 6 feet. Upon surfacing, after approximately 10 minutes, the current had taken me to the northeast from my location. I knew that the situation was bad, and that was not a good feeling. I saw the first Coast Guard helicopter on scene about an hour and a half after I surfaced. We've never called the Coast Guard
Baby, I couldn't
each
be
other.
in the sea. I couldn't be in the ocean.
We've been
I
diving
could
for
die
a
for
long
sure.
time.
Because I'm
So I knew that something was up.
paddling in the sea. I can't do it.
I saw them show up, and then they started doing their search. They set up their grid, and I knew it was going to be hours before they got to where I was.
We talked every day. I was her kid's godmother. She's kind of like an extended family. Not a day went by we didn't talk, do something, whatever. But we never even had an argument ever in life. Eva's mother had passed away and left her this house. She could have easily stayed in the house. She decided she wanted to start over in a new town and didn't have the money to do so. So she had an idea that she would come to Columbus, live in this shelter for women and children, and after a couple of weeks that they would give her an apartment and pay the utilities free. She could stay there for free for 6 months to get on her feet. So she chose to do that. Eva would come and stay with me for a few days at a time. She'd say, "Oh, do you mind if I come stay for a couple of days?" And of course, it was fine. The whole time she'd be there, she would sleep. She'd get up and eat dinner and go back to sleep. And my boyfriend was like, that doesn't seem right to me. Something's wrong. Is she on drugs? She has to be on drugs. I got back from the trail, and as I'm pulling up, my boyfriend's in the driveway, and he's talking to Eva and her brother Terry. It's not uncommon for Eva to come by. Terry, it just didn't sit well with me. My stomach knotted up. I didn't feel right. I even hesitated. I just wanted to drive on by. Something was like, this is not right. I whispered to my boyfriend, I said, why are they here? And he said, Renee, they're your friends. You know, I don't know. As I'm sitting on the front stoop with them, it was like an eerie feeling. They really were kind of just quiet in a weird sense of
I know they
way.
didn't shut
You
up.
know, you come over to my house to visit me, but you're not saying anything. You're just sitting there. I thought to myself, why are you calling for a ride and how did you get here? If you had a ride here, why didn't they just take you where you need to go? It just all did not sit right. And I'm just like, okay, if I give her the phone, someone's going to pick her up there and they're gone and I don't have to deal with this. You would never think, you know, it's such a small noise. But when I heard that, I just stopped because it was the loudest noise I had ever heard. And I turned around and Terry had a gun pointed at my forehead.
Oh, she betrayed her in the worst way. Oh, that's what happened.
All I could think
Girl, they shot her in the face. She thinks she getting help, and it's the same man that shot her in the face. That sound like a movie, bitch.
at the time was fighting second by second, moment by moment, just to stay alive. Who was this person? What was going to happen next? I knew I was flat on my back. Something just slid on the floor. And then I felt a pillow come down over my face. I had no idea what was going on. All I know is that I wanted to continue to breathe. So again, moment by moment, second by second, I wanted to breathe. What did I need to do to continue to breathe? I remembered I had shoes on
Sleepy.
and I had heels. And I thought, if I could only get one of those heels off of my foot. So very carefully, I lowered my hand. And he said, what's wrong? So I told him, I said, you're suffocating me. I can't breathe. And he says, oh, I'm sorry. And he took the pillow off my face. Now, I didn't know how effective that was going to be, but I sure thought if I would have known that was going to work, I would have done it much sooner. After the incident with the pillow, and he would walk around the room, and then he wouldn't say anything. And I could hear the television droning on quietly in the background. And then he would walk over to me, and he reached down, and he was taking off my clothing. And I was thinking, what is going to come next? It can't be. And it was. I was raped.
That's crazy, bro. All of them be getting raped, bro.
The whole time that I was on the surface, I wasn't just drifting. I wasn't just on an inner tube and like in the Bahamas enjoying myself. It was a struggle the entire time to keep my head above water, even with the flotation device, because the wind's blowing the tops of the waves off and throwing them in your face. You can't use your hands to paddle or do anything to keep your position because both your hands are you got the death grip on your equipment.
And the ocean is cold.
You're going to make the biggest commotion you can so that they can see you. And I was doing that by putting my bag on the end of my pole spear and with the flashlight hanging on there. It was a yellow flashlight. I was waving that back and forth. As another helicopter was approaching, I went to go grab the bag to put it on the pole spear, and I realized that I had dropped the bag. I knew that if I was going to make it to nightfall, that was my only chance. And now the frustration just was, really took hold. And that's when I just threw a couple other pieces of equipment away. I was like, why am I even holding on to this stuff? as the sun was setting and the desperation was building, I realized that this last helicopter was coming by. If they didn't see me during the day, they're never gonna see me at night. So I was trying to think of a way to get their attention. Right now, as the sun as it's dark, the power head is about probably 3 or 4 inches long, and it's big around as your thumb. It kicks back just like a gun would if you were holding it. And so you have to figure out a way to allow it to kick out of your hand, as opposed to, you can't hold it because it's basically a controlled explosion in your hand. You know, it's going through your mind that something bad might happen, and something bad did happen. When it kicked back, instead of kicking back out of my hand like I anticipated, it went right between my fingers and pretty much uh, blew my knuckle on my index finger on my right hand. Just kind of shattered it, and then it lodged in between there.
Mm-mm. That's why I don't play with water, but
I'm going to be out there all night. It's rough, and it's getting rougher. The helicopters didn't find me during the day. I know I'm going to be out there all night. I blew my hand apart. I'm not going to be able to use it if I need it. It's bleeding. I don't know if shark's going to show up in the middle of the night. The water's cold. It's 80 degrees. Now the wind's blowing. It's nighttime. Now you're getting cold, and you start to ask yourself, what did I do wrong? I didn't, I just got up to go diving, and now I'm in a situation that is going to probably cost me my life.
we all been there.
And I turned around and Terry had a gun pointed at my forehead. And I just stopped and I'm like, I looked at him and I'm like, what are you doing? I thought they're playing, because she's my best friend. I look over at her. She never once made eye contact with me through the whole time. She would look away. She'd look down because I was kind of like wanting to look at her to be like, help. What is wrong with him? But what was wrong with him was they hatched this plan. They're both against me. She's not going to help. Terry said that they needed money, and I said, well, I don't have any money. Eva spoke up and said, well, Kelly's friends do, and he will pay to get you back. When they asked for money, I knew she's in a situation she needed to get a place to live. I'm thinking, could she do this for rent money? Really? I didn't have money to give them, so the whole situation was not well thought out. It didn't make sense. Then immediately I thought, she knows where my gun's at. We have a 9mm we kept underneath our mattress for protection. She knew we kept a gun there. When she went down the stairs, it just dawned on me. She's going to get my gun, my only source of protection that I have. For whatever reason, he didn't follow. But I went down the stairs, and when I turned the corner to go into our family room, she's coming out of my room carrying my gun. And the safety on the gun is very, very tricky. And not everyone knows that, but me and Kelly. So as soon as she comes out, I lunge, and we're like struggling over this gun. And I'm stronger than she is, and I knew I'm going to take this gun. And if I have to shoot him to get out, I will. We're kind of like pulling on it, trying to get it out of each other's grasp. I'm gaining control over the gun. I could feel her grasp starting to slip. And then as she's hollering for her brother, I'm thinking, I've got to get this from her now. The next thing I knew, he had his arm around my neck, kind of like this, and he's trying to pull me off of her. And he was having trouble getting me off of her. And so he bit my back, and it hurt so bad. I had to let go of the gun with one arm to try to go like that to get him off of me. And when I did that, she gained control of the gun. And then they both had pointed the guns. Both guns were against my head. I knew that there's no way I could overpower the both of them. I knew that then, I was pretty much going to die.
I was thinking, what is going to come next? And then I felt something cold and go into my chest and on my neck. I remained silent. And since I remained silent, he remained silent. The body's a miraculous thing, and I was spared from any pain. I felt pressures, I felt sensations, and I remember feeling terribly, terribly cold. Whether it was the blood or whether it was he had taken all my clothing, but I was shivering. I mean, just shivering uncontrollably. You don't instantly adapt to blindness in a matter of an hour or two. You don't, it's terrifying, first of all. All I had left was to focus on the sounds. The television, I could tell it was on an all night station, and so there were reruns of old movies that were on. And I just listened to where he was going. He went into the other room, he left me, and I could feel him, pacing and watching and just staring. I dozed off, and apparently he did too. Because I was awakened to him breathing very heavily at the foot of the bed. It's like he was sitting on the floor with his head resting on the mattress. And as I'm lying there, I'm listening to the street noises, and they were very few, minimal at best. So I thought it's still either very late in the evening or very early in the morning. And I thought, what are my chances if I were to try to make a break for, and I'm thinking, where? The door. Where's the door? I had no idea where the door was.